Did you know about 6.5 million animals enter shelters across the U.S. annually? Well, that could all change if the next time you thought about adding an addition to your family, you refrained from buying from a commercial breeder and instead adopted from a local animal shelter. Through extensive research and referencing of peer-reviewed articles, I feel as though I am adequately prepared to both educate and hopefully persuade you to the honorable action of adopting a pet rather than buying. I hope by the end of this speech you are able to see the positive impact adoption has on the pet population. To begin, I will talk about the conditions associated with commercial breeding, then I'll discuss the surplus of animals in the U.S., and lastly I will explain how adoption from shelters can aid in solving this monumental issue. First, let's talk about both the conditions and overall treatment of animals inside of commercial breeders. There are an estimated 10,000 puppy mills in the U.S., both licensed and unlicensed, and according to the Puppy Mill Project, over 2 million puppies are born to these breeders annually. Conditions of puppy mills and select breeding distributors are objectively inhumane. Puppy mills are dog breeding operations that are more concerned with making a profit than the health and well-being of their dogs. Some of these so-called establishments are licensed by the United States Department of Agriculture, but many are unlicensed. In order to sell to pet stores, the breeder must be licensed, though many still slip through the cracks, and unlicensed breeders sell to stores without proper documentation. These operations can be both large or small, and you might be thinking, oh, smaller is better, but that's not necessarily true. According to the journal article, A Local Approach to a National Problem, smaller mills often keep the animals in cramped, overfilled, wired kennels. In these conditions, dogs must live, eat, and sleep in the same place that they defecate. And because of this and their close proximity, these animals are prone to widespread infection. Health risks associated with commercial breeding are high. In puppy mills, the spread of periodontal disease is rampant because of the cramped enclosures and poor hygiene. According to the journal article Prevalence of Periodontal Disease, this illness manifests as a result of infection from inflammation of the gums, bone, and other tissue surrounding and supporting the teeth. Other disheartening facts that come from the same study are that periodontal disease is often characterized as more prevalent, more severe, and less likely to be treated by veterinarians than dogs that are for companionship or just hobby breeding. This unfortunately is reality for these dogs that are locked in kennels, along with being plagued by fleas, worms, and in some cases mange. Next, I'll describe the surplus of animals that is only heightened with the continuation of commercial breeding. Commercial breeders have no regard for the sheer amount of animals that they are producing because they're only concerned with the money that these animals bring in. According to the article, A Local Approach to a National Problem, over $2.3 billion were sold in U.S. markets in 2010 on animal sales alone. The puppy mill industry turns out millions of puppies a year, which in turn condemns those puppies and later adult dogs into a life on the streets or eventually being completely abandoned by their owners to the shelter. Miscommunication and lack of information are another reason for this sad truth. Dog adoption success is influenced by many factors, but one that is most important is patience. Unfortunately, many animals are returned to shelters due to behavioral problems. These so-called problems most likely stem from new owners. The lack of education on the time it takes for an animal to adapt to its new environment and routine is prevalent. The article Behaviors of Dogs Adopted from Animal Shelters states that the most frequent behavioral problems from adopted dogs are aggression, separation anxiety, fearfulness, destructiveness, and excessive vocalization. And these are all shown during the first week after adoption. Now let me clarify. Owners are returning animals after 1 week of adopting them from a local shelter. When in reality, these are all normal behaviors for recently adopted dogs. It takes an animal a minimum of 2 weeks to fully acclimate to its new environment. Because of this miscommunication, animals can be put back in shelters, thus increasing the surplus. Lastly, the act of adopting an animal in need has more positives than you could ever imagine. Adopting not only gets you a loving, loyal pet, but it also helps solve the feedback loop that is commercial breeding. Adopting offers space in shelters for animals in need. When you adopt a pet, you can reduce the pet overpopulation cycle, which is nearly 7.6 million animals annually. By choosing to adopt, you're choosing to help animals living on the streets, which in turn saves 2 lives at once. It is scientifically proven that adopting a pet can reduce stress and depression. In addition to this, you're creating space for shelters for homeless dogs and cats. And if that isn't enough for you, You can also support a local charity and enrich your community when you adopt. When other people see that you have adopted an animal, it can inspire them to do the same, which only has positives in resolving this issue. Adopting one animal can make a bigger impact than you could ever imagine. The adoption of a pet from a shelter gives that animal a new shot at life. The easiest way to change an animal's life is through adoption. You're saving one of the millions of pets that get euthanized yearly due to overpopulation in shelters. Buying an animal straight from a breeder only accelerates the problem of producing more animals than what can be purchased. Adoption also fights puppy mills, which, to quote the Humane Society, houses dogs in shockingly poor conditions with improper medical care. You have the chance to make the pivotal decision of either changing a homeless animal's life or being a part of the problem. To conclude my speech, let's look back on what I've talked about. Overall, the condition of puppy mills and commercial breeders are abhorrent. The surplus of unclaimed animals in the U.S. is a saddening sight to see, but thankful, the prospect of adopting an animal holds nothing but hope. Now that my speech has come to a close, I hope you can all think back on what I've shared and consider adopting when you think of adding an addition to your family. Just know that opening your heart and home to a rescue animal not only saves their life, but also allows for a brighter future to more animals than you'll ever know. And in the words of animal rights activist and Price is Right host Bob Barker, help control the pet population. Spay or neuter your pets. Thank you.